Hey, Warrior Saints, Father Chris here. Welcome to our Crucifixional live stream. Glad to have you beautiful people with us today. We're talking this week about how to be successful in business as a Warrior Saint, which really means how do we succeed in business and not sell our soul? This is really what we're hoping to accomplish. And we've had a glorious week thus far. We've had some great ideas thrown out there and some thoughts, and we've had great feedback. People are really gracious to us. We appreciate you. Today we want to talk and maybe add one more layer to keeping the soul clean and pure as we also find success in our business. And the kind of the foundational verse that we struggle with all the time comes to us from 1 Timothy chapter 6, which says, the love of money is the root of all evil. Now, we talked about it earlier this week. Money itself is not evil. It's when you become consumed by it, when you love it ahead of God, ahead of family, ahead of ethics, ahead of integrity. This is when money becomes really a monster because, like we said yesterday, you start chasing it and you follow it and you go down its path, which is to say, ultimately, you left following God and God's path, right? So how do we succeed and make all this money but not fall in love with it ahead of God and the rest of the things that are more appropriate? We do so, I think, by learning how to give, right? And it's hard because the temptation of money, especially when we find, as Timothy's been saying, the love of money, we want to keep it, right? I face that temptation too. I don't have a lot of money, but the little money I do have, I don't always want to give it away, especially not to Uncle Sam, right? Like, I want my money. I worked hard for it, right? All of this kind of stuff that we all probably struggle with. But I have found in my own life that the more generous I am, the more I give it away, the better I feel, the less attached to it, the less needy, the clearer, the more focused I find about life and about how to be a warrior saint. And I also find that in some weird way, God blesses me back. Like, it's crazy. I don't understand how if you give, you end up getting, but you do. And that's not something that's novel that Father Chris discovered. This happens all the time, and has happened forever. In fact, in the book of Proverbs, we even hear the very same thing. In chapter 19, I'm going to read to you. I said yesterday, I love Proverbs. It's wisdom, man. It's close to my heart. It's one of my favorites. So that's why I pound it. Read chapter 19, verse 17. You hear the following. He who is kind to the poor, which means lends. He who is kind to the poor and lends to the... Start over. He who is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, right? He's saying that if you're giving to poor, you're actually doing this for God. You're giving to God. God doesn't need your money. It's not about it. It's about the act of your giving to the poor is actually of giving to the Lord. And he will repay him for his deed. Now, don't misunderstand. That doesn't mean that if you give $5 to the poor, that God's going to slip you a secret check in your Chime account for $5. That's not how it works, right? It's not always about getting repaid with money. And that's okay, because we don't really love it. We may want it, we may work hard for it, but we're not in love with it. So God repays us with a sense of peace, a sense of accomplishment. Maybe seeing that guy succeed is like, holy cow, look what I've helped God do. I mean, this is more precious than gold, right? That feeling, that knowledge. There's a fabulous story in Luke, which kind of, lends itself to this whole conversation we're having. And it's about, people, Jesus is watching people giving to the church or the synagogue at the time, however, the temple. And he sees all these people giving, they have rich money and they throw in a few coins and they may give like hundreds and maybe even thousands of dollars, right, to compare it. And yet here comes a poor widow. Listen to the story from chapter 21. He looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw a poor widow put in 2 copper coins. And he said, truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them. For they all contributed out of their abundance. But she, out of her poverty, put in all the living that she had. Now, I don't think what Jesus is saying, and definitely what I'm not saying, is that you should give away all your money so you become poor. There are other verses that talk about, give away everything you have and come follow me. And very often people think about St. Anthony, the first monk who lived in the Egyptian desert. That's a different conversation. That's not what I'm talking about today. I'm not asking you to give it all away to be poor. The message in that statement is the rich threw, even though it was more in quantity than what the poor widow threw, they threw in, leftovers. But she gave everything she had. It may have been that she even went hungry. And while that may not be literally what happened, the statement is that her hunger was more for God than for her own money. Do you see it? It was her hunger was deeper for God and for his commandments than even her own satisfaction and her own desires. And that's the message. That's the point about giving away money to the poor. Churches, we all ask for our people to tithe, partly because it's biblical, but partly because, and maybe I would even say, at least here, mostly because the benefits that you receive when you do so. It's allowing you to put God first in your heart. We talked about this yesterday. Was it yesterday? Maybe the day before. But having a desire for money is not inherently evil. It's when it becomes the most important desire you have in your life. And that all of a sudden, I love money. Oh, I love God too. Oh, I love my family. I love integrity. I love honesty. Put money down at the bottom, right? You can love it all you want at the bottom. Make loving God and his commandments the first thing. And by giving it away, it helps us to be able to do that because, well, it just works. And I'm telling you, this is why churches ask us to tithe so that we can bump God back up to the top and put money down at the bottom instead of the other way around. You see it? This is why we are inclined to give to churches, to give to charities, to give to hungry men and women that we see on the side of the street. It is about taking care of them. And it is also, maybe that's 1 and 1A is also about us finding in our hearts to be like the widow who put the love of God ahead of the love of my own desires. To do that is being crucifixional par excellence. And that's what we teach every single day, all single day at warriorsaints.org. We have a lesson that we put up this week. It's called How to Be Successful in Business. And we explore this idea of giving and how it sets us free. Subscribe. All you got to do is visit warriorsaints.org. Subscribe down to the course list that we have. We have a few courses more coming. Subscribe to The Way of the Warrior Saint. $9, dude. You're going to get yourself and your life on track for $9. That's all. Love you. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. Till then, as always, keep walking on the way of the Warrior Saint.